Hello everyone, hope you're having a glorious day. It's always a glorious day in Hawaii, and today is no exception. We're talking about our final installment of How Do You Know What Is True? So, today I have a little story about medical school when I was in medical school. But first, we're learning about how do you know what is true. And one of the things that every human being should consider are what I call the 5 most important questions in life. So let's take a look at these. So in life, the 5 most important questions that anyone will have to answer are origin, how did I get here? Identity, who am I really? Purpose, what is the meaning of life? Morality, how should I relate to others? Destiny, what happens after I die? Well, I was stuck between 2 worldviews. See, I went to UC Irvine Biopsy and was in a very secular program among evolutionary biologists, some of the top ones in the world. And how they saw the world, how they thought that it happened, was they answered this question of origin, how did we get here, that we're a random cosmic accident. We're the chance, consequence, end result of evolution. So without free will. So we don't have free will because we're determined by the physical motion and collocation of atoms swirling in our brain. And to the answer, who are we really? It is, well, we just simply make up our identity. Anything that's affirmed by our family, friends, culture, or likes, or thumbs up, or popularity is what our identity is. That's who we become, or who we are. And to answer what is the meaning, well, ultimately that's meaningless. You really just make up your own purpose for life because, the answer to morality, how should we relate to others, is it's similarly purposeless, because if the sun burns out, the earth grows cold, well, then ultimately there is no meaning to anything. That what we do, whether good or bad to others, really doesn't account for anything in eternity or at the end of the universe, the world. So our destiny is to nothingness. We cease to exist, back to dust. In the second worldview, the answer to origin is creation. We were created by an all-powerful, all-knowing, timeless, spaceless, immaterial, creative, personal, loving, relational God. And our identity is that we were made in His image with free will to love and be obedient, sometimes make choices that hurt others. And that's why the world is fallen. And so the meaning of life is to know God, who writes Himself into the story of human history in the person of Jesus, and to trust that He took a penalty that we deserved, a just punishment for an unbridgeable chasm to get back to God. And so by human effort, this is religion. But by trusting in a relationship with one that could do it, in Jesus, it is Christianity. And so our morality becomes that God's law is beyond our opinion, or beyond our subjective ideas of what is good or what is right or wrong, which changes with culture. And so God's objective truth, like sanctity of sex or sanctity of life, given the Imago Dei, is to love God and others with this attitude of gratitude for an unpayable debt that we can never repay. And our destiny is to live with kingdom values of heaven, not just in eternity after we die, but now, like forgiveness and grace and reconciliation, restoration. So we can enjoy these here and now and dwell in the presence of a holy God for a timeless eternity, a realm outside of time. So there I was in medical school, and did I believe this naturalistic reductional deconstruction of materialism? What was the intention of life? Well, I was studying the human body in microbiology. So I thought about this by looking below the intention of human beings and saying, well, underlying this is skin, and these are tissues, and making up these tissues are cellular interactions of different cells. These are whole cells combined for tissue, and these cells are individually expressed to make different types of cells. Even though they have the instructions to make any type of cell that they want, they are differentiated into different types of cells. One's a lung, one's a skin, one's a bone, one's a immune cell. So inside these cells are cell organelles, specialized equipment and structures to carry out the intention of this individual cell working in concert with all other cells. And at the nucleus, the command central, the brain, if you will, of the cell is the information center, the nucleus. And it houses the chromosomes, which are the books of instructions for how to create the entire being. And inside the chromosomes are DNA, which are complex language of sentences that can be read forward and backward. It's like reading a book and then flipping around and reading it from back to front, and it makes sense. Not only that, you can skip certain letters and it still makes sense. You can fold it up in 3D, and the portions that touch each other are communicating with each other. This is an incredibly complex set of information. And on that information, DNA is code, which is driving the intention of the whole cell. There's a language specifying the direction and intention for life. So this DNA is transcribed into little pieces, mRNA, and this book needs to be rewritten for smaller pieces to make parts of the cell. That's like translating Spanish into another closely related Romance language. And then after that, it's translated into proteins. These proteins require protein themselves to be able to be made. So a machine that reads the message of the instruction manual cranks out the raw material of the protein bits to be ready to be processed and make parts or pieces of the cell to be able to do things, to be able to carry out this intention, these products of the cell. So the proteins are required to read and make things from DNA information, and the DNA, the information or instruction manual, is required to instruct how to make the proteins. They both are necessary for each other. They both have to exist in order to work. So both are exceedingly fragile and must be protected from the small changes of pH, temperature, and concentrations of electrolytes by a phospholipid bilayer. And is this phospholipid bilayer just, a mere bubble of soap? No, it's an incredibly complex regulator of movement in and out of the cell at the atomic level. So I was sitting there, perplexed, in a microbiology course in medical school, and I realized either all of this spontaneously assembled, complete, all put together instantaneously, all at the same moment, under the same very fragile conditions, or it was the product of an intelligent designer who created it. And it was at that moment that I knew God was absolutely, without a doubt, 100% completely reliably true. And it showed that creation demonstrates the intention and intelligence of information, which is providence. Providence is the protective care of God as a spiritual power, the timely preparation for future eventualities, this intention, this thing that weaves all things together working in relation to each other. Cells working with cells to make up tissues. Tissues making up organs. Organs making up the body. And the body so uniquely suited for the environment and others around that being. And this is how I came to know 100% that God is true.